Hope you all enjoyed your lunch, and all you guys who are live streaming, hope you had a nice lunch and all refreshed for the next speaker. So I'd love to welcome onto the stage my comrade in arms, completely my comrade in arms. Make me emotional now, Claire. She is an amazing person. Again, her role is an advanced care planning advocate, educator, coach, and LPA consultant. She has her own business called Speak For Me, and she's been absolutely inspirational. Welcome, Claire.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's lovely to see you, and Danny, what a welcome. I have to say, there's a big chunk of me that's fighting to keep control as I'm talking now, because I feel so emotional talking to you all today. So, Danny, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And I hope you can't hear the emotion in my voice. It's actually not nerves talking on stage for the first time, it's emotion. So it really is a privilege to be here with all of you. So, professional hat on, deep breath. My name is Claire Fuller, and I'm going to talk to you about, just after lunch, just what you want, lasting power of attorney. So thank you, Norfolk and Norwich University Hospital, and thank you, Danny, from the bottom of my heart for organising this absolutely fabulous event and for giving me a platform to talk about something that I care so passionately about. And it might sound strange, lasting power of attorney and passion, but by Jove, I do get excited about LPAs. So, this rather busy slide just says that I am a nurse through and through. Cut me through and you'll see nurse. I've been a nurse since, I'd say, the age of 5. I've had a passion for all things advanced care planning, and I've worked across the board. So I guess wherever you guys have worked, I've probably worked there too. I've worked in hospices, the community, the acute sector for the GSF, and as the CQC Specialist Advisor as well. And I've also cared for a close family member who died at home. So I really proudly add the role of a carer to my CV too, and I think that is so important. What I've seen universally throughout my really long career, I did write 30 years and realised actually it's even longer than 30 years, which makes me feel a bit old, is that advanced care planning is often left too late. And we've heard those messages, haven't we, from Sammy and Sian right from the beginning of this morning. Advanced care planning in every role that I've been working in has been left too late. I've seen the devastating impact that this can have on patients, on families, and arguably, yes, too, on us as staff too. When the real wishes of a person just haven't been heard, that person-centred care has been missing. If I had £1 for every time I heard a person say, I was going to do a lasting power of attorney, I was going to do, but now it's too late, I would be super rich. So I set out to change this and improve professional education, raise public awareness, and just normalise planning ahead. And I know as we talk later on, Danny, we're going to show this is just normal. This isn't scary. So one part of that business I do is acting as a lasting power of attorney consultant, and that's the hat that I'm wearing to talk with you all now. So this talk, I hope, will be of relevance to you if you are a healthcare professional in this room. And to every nurse, to every doctor and every allied healthcare professional listening here today and listening online, I invite you throughout my talk to reflect on the systems and the processes that you have in place at your work. Think about how you document a lasting power of attorney. Is it a tick box? Think about how you include LPAs in your planning ahead conversations. Do you know how to check the validity of a lasting power of attorney? Just asking. Or indeed how to signpost somebody who wants to make their lasting power of attorney. But this talk will also be of relevance to you if you're thinking about making your own lasting power of attorney. And also, I hope, if you are acting in this audience as an attorney for somebody who has their LPA. So something I really must say at the outset is that I'm talking about the law as it specifically currently stands in England and Wales. And I know we've got people live streaming. It's great to see you all today. And different countries will have different laws. Canada, I know, refer to a substitute decision maker or proxy. So I invite you to think about what is relevant into your area of work. Out of interest, there are some changes coming, and the Powers of Attorney Bill proposed by MP Stephen Metcalfe received royal assent in 2023. So watch this space for some changes that will be coming, but I'm not going to talk about those now. So over the next 25 minutes or so, I am going to talk about what a lasting power of attorney is and why it matters, how you can make a lasting power of attorney, what happens if a lasting power of attorney is not in place. And I'd also like to go through some very common pitfalls, challenges, and some myths. We are covering loads of ground. I'd normally try and do this, Danny knows, in about an hour or an hour and a half. So this really is a race and a romp through. But I will try and pause between each section with a key takeaway. And if my maths is right, there'll be 5 takeaways throughout the discussion. For more detail on much of what I'm going to be talking about, you can access my blogs, podcasts, and resource area on the website. And before I jump into lasting power of attorney, I'm going to set LPAs in the context of what we're all here today to talk about on the first National Day of Advanced Care Planning. So before I talk about LPAs, let's set them in the context of advanced care planning. So we've heard a lot about different forms, different ways, different processes, and wherever I've worked throughout my career, it's always been difficult, complicated, and confusing. So I designed a model of advanced care planning that will work for you, 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 and you. It doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter what stage of your healthcare you're at, whether you're, whatever illness journey you have, it doesn't matter what forms you use, this model will work. So using the model of getting your house in order, I don't know why that keeps pinging, I'm afraid. Advanced care planning is simply built on what matters most to you. That fabulous presentations we've had this morning. We can't do advanced care planning unless we know what matters most to a person. Advanced care planning is built on that strong foundation. We then have different windows, what I like to call windows. We think about the things that you do want. How would you translate that in the areas that you work? And that might be a statement of wishes and preferences. Zoe, it might be using your I can't see Zoe, but it may be using your My Care Matters Future Handbook. So as long as we know the general principle, you can translate it differently where you work. It might be thinking about the things that you don't want. Usha, I know that, I can't see Usha now, but the title of your talk was thinking about advanced decisions to refuse treatment, so another element of advanced care planning. It might be thinking about who would speak for you, and I'll be covering that in the LPA session now. And James, you're going to be talking about legacy afterwards as well. So this is a model I've developed to try, I hope, and explain advanced care planning. There is a small window in advanced care planning. I don't know if it'll come as a shock or a surprise, but there is a diddy little window in advanced care planning that is about end-of-life care. But I hope to show that most of advanced care planning will apply to everybody in this room here today and now. So my first takeaway is quite simple. A lasting power of attorney is just a normal part of life planning, and it's not something just to be associated with the last stages of life. So what is a lasting power of attorney? It's getting really exciting now. LPAs were created under the Mental Capacity Act 2005. An LPA is a legal document and it enables you to nominate somebody you trust to support you to make decisions or make decisions in your best interests if you lose capacity. Now, forgive me, that's a really long sentence, but it's very, very important that I read that sentence in full, because we generally shorten that rather unwieldy sentence to say that an LPA enables someone to speak for you. And yes, in many ways it does, but it's really important to be mindful of the underpinning principles of the Mental Capacity Act, and I'll do a quick recap on those on the next slide. Now, we often associate a loss of capacity with an illness such as dementia, but loss of capacity can, of course, occur through a sudden accident, a sudden ill health, and what better example than COVID-19, something that happened without any thought or planning, many people without plans in place. And we can lose capacity through a longer-term debilitating illness, which would, of course, include dementia. So none of us have that crystal ball. None of us can see that T-Rex around the corner. And I like to think of a lasting power of attorney a little bit as an insurance policy. But unlike an insurance policy, it's there just in case it's needed. But unlike that insurance policy, once it's done, it's done. You don't have to top it up and do it again. So just some key terms. A person making their LPA is called the donor, and the people appointed to speak for them or speak on their behalf or help them to make decisions, they're the people called the attorneys, and I'll use those terms throughout the talk. So interesting fact, and I know this is after lunch, but top tip, keep your ears pinned back. Each time I say interesting fact, keep your ears pinned. That's a little warning there. Most people, and that's around about 77% surveyed by Which, thought you could just set up a lasting power of attorney when you need it. but think it through. You must have capacity to make a lasting power of attorney. And by the time you need to use it, you've lost capacity and therefore the opportunity to make that lasting power of attorney. So before I explain the different types of lasting power of attorney, I'm going to just spend a moment with the Mental Capacity Act. It's not a phrase I say very often. The MCA is designed to protect and empower people who may lack mental capacity to make their own decisions about their care and treatment, and it obviously applies to people aged 16 and over. It's based on 5 principles. I'm not reading them all out to the experts in the room today, and I know you'll be so familiar with them, but I just want to pause for a moment and think about the Act, specifically in relation to lasting power of attorney. I'll draw your attention to some important points. Notice number 2. Individuals must be supported to make their own decisions. And in practice, that means attorneys don't suddenly take over. Instead, they should find ways to support the donor to make decisions. Number 4 talks about best interests, which include finding out the person's views, any documented wishes, and avoiding discrimination. We've covered a lot of that in this morning already. And I really have to mention number 5. Lots of people are really unfamiliar with the intersection between lasting power of attorney and deprivation of liberty safeguards. I mentioned the podcasts earlier, and I explore that in detail in the podcast number 55, 56, and 57. So I'd suggest you can listen to them if you would like to find out more about DOLS and lasting power of attorney. The mental capacity can also fluctuate with time. Somebody may lack capacity at one point in time, but be able to make decisions at another point in time. When I'm drafting LPAs for somebody, the question I'm asked, probably more than any other thing, is about capacity. It is so important to understand. And it's not helpful to think in an arbitrary or an abstract way about having or not having capacity. It's more complicated, isn't it? Discussion must always come back to capacity for what? So to have capacity, a person must be able to understand, retain, weigh up, and communicate decisions made. Remember, again, capacity is time and decision specific. Part of the application process in making that lasting power of attorney involves naming a certificate provider, and that's an independent person who confirms that you're making a lasting power of attorney of your own free will, you understand what you're doing, and you have the appropriate mental capacity to do so. So I've mentioned podcasts already. I'm thrilled and honoured that Hospice UK have chosen the podcasts, conversations about advanced care planning, as one of their resources for Dying Matters this year. So I'm flagging and incredibly proud and humbled that the podcasts have been, are available on that resource list. And some that I would like to offer to you that are useful for capacity are on this slide here. I won't read them out. Danny, I know you're going to be sending the links on to everybody afterwards. So moving back into lasting power of attorney, let's drill down into the nuts and bolts a little bit more. There are 2 different types of lasting power of attorney, and again, I'm talking about the law as it stands in England and Wales. There is a health and welfare lasting power of attorney, and that gives the attorney the ability to make decisions about things like your medical care, moving into a care home. It can only be used if you're unable to make your own decisions. All the while, you have capacity or autonomy, you have autonomy over your own decision-making. Having an LPA doesn't mean that you've allocated an attorney who will suddenly start speaking for you or making decisions for you. Fun fact, here's back time. Around about 72% of people think that their next of kin can speak for them if they lose capacity, but this isn't true. You need the specific agreed consent of the person involved before a next of kin can make treatment or welfare choice decisions on someone else's behalf. And that always comes as a shock. I know as a nurse that's come as a shock to so many people I've worked with. So zooming in now on the role of attorneys, how on earth can they speak for you if they don't know what matters most to you? An LPA is fantastic. I'm an advocate for LPAs, but an LPA is only as useful if the attorneys are armed with knowing what matters most to you, that foundation of advanced care planning. So a property and finance LPA gives an attorney the power to make decisions about, surprisingly, property and finance. Things like managing a bank account, collecting a pension, or selling a home. And there's a difference with a property and finance LPA because that can be used with your consent as soon as that document has been registered or on loss of capacity. And that's a decision and a discussion you have when you're drafting the lasting power of attorney. Another fun fact for you, this one I find when I do I do monthly talks and webinars, this always shocks people. Around about 73% of people think that if a couple have a joint bank account and one of them loses capacity, their partner can legally make decisions for them both, but this is untrue. An LPA, however, will give consent to access joint funds. The most public person about this challenge, this problem, you may remember the wonderful Kate Garraway and her husband Derek, who had COVID. Kate Garraway has become a very public ambassador for lasting power of attorney because Derek, struck by COVID, has very sadly since died. And when he became acutely unwell, Kate, I believe it was her mortgage or her pensions, something she was unable to manage because this was in Derek's name. So this was a very public example of how not having a lasting power of attorney in that sudden accident made a critical difference. And we all associate it with dementia, but we never think about those sudden life events. A lasting power of attorney must be checked and registered by the Office of the Public Guardian before it can be used. So you fill it in, you then send it off, it's checked and registered. And guess what? It takes around, if we had more time, I'd ask for a show of hand, it takes around 20 weeks for that Office of the Public Guardian to check and register the form, and that's if there's no problems with the form. There are three other terms that it's worth being familiar with. An ordinary power of attorney, that can be set up by a person with appropriate capacity on loss of capacity. It doesn't need registration, but it must have some set words. That might be useful for lots of you guys in the room when you're caring for a patient who's losing capacity and there's just not time for that 20-week wait period. So think about an ordinary power of attorney. That might be some useful arrow in your armoury. There isn't an equivalent ordinary power of attorney for health and welfare. I'm often faced with clients, as I've said, when it's too late to make those decisions. So what I recommend is that all of the discussions that we've had earlier, potentially creating a statement of wishes and preferences, potentially creating an advanced decision to refuse treatment. Now, another lasting power of attorney that you might not have heard of is a business lasting power of attorney. A business lasting power of attorney is quite simply a property and finance LPA. It's the same documents that are used, but somebody may choose to appoint a business lasting power of attorney that is separate for their personal last. Say that again. So somebody may choose to decide a different person for their health, for their personal finance and for their business finance. That's not an unusual situation. But the form is identical. The form is exactly the same. Just mindful of time. Gosh, this is a quick presentation. How many of you have come across an enduring power of attorney? I can see some nods in the audience there. So an enduring power of attorney is something that you guys need to be aware of. An enduring power of attorney is a legal document which enables a person to make decisions related just to financial matters. It's the same as a property and finance, but there is a key difference. If the donor loses capacity, the enduring power of attorney must be registered with the Office of the Public Guardian, and again, you're going to have that wait time. EPAs do not cover health and welfare decisions, and they stopped in 2007 after intro of the lasting power of attorney. You might come across, in your work, you might come across a patient or a person with an enduring power of attorney. They can be used, but they can't still be created. So how does a lasting power of attorney work? It must be made in line with the Mental Capacity Act, which we've explored already. One of the speakers this morning had a fantastic discussion on consent. Wayne, I believe it was Wayne. You can consent to, you can refuse treatment, but none of us in this room can demand a treatment. How many of you have faced a really distressed relative saying to you, you must do this to my mum because I'm an attorney and I'm telling you to do it? But it doesn't work like that. Just as none of us can demand a medically inappropriate treatment, you can't demand any treatment just because you're an attorney. Remember, decisions are always based in someone's best interests. It's always worth knowing that attorneys can act jointly and severally, or jointly for some decisions and jointly and severally for others. And these are really key discussions when you're drafting, and I would argue when you're checking a lasting power of attorney. And attorneys may or they may not have permission to make life-sustaining treatment decisions. In practice, jointly and severally is the most practical option, and I've yet to draft a lasting power of attorney where the person restricted their attorneys to non-life-sustaining treatment decisions. But as healthcare professionals, we need to know that that might be on the form, and we have a responsibility to understand and check that. So I'm sharing this because when you document if a patient or a client has an LPA, do you check if it's for property and finance? Do you check if it's for health and welfare? Do you know how those attorneys can act? And are there any special instructions? And I know the education I had, the education and training I had as a nurse, it didn't include any of that. It was just, has the person got an LPA? So the takeaway from this section is simple. An LPA enables you to nominate a person you trust to support you to make decisions. So how do you make a lasting power of attorney? There are 3 different ways you can do an LPA. You can do it yourself, the DIY approach, using the government website. You can use a lasting power of attorney consultant, somebody like me, or you could choose a solicitor. And the main difference here is knowledge. Creating an LPA with a consultant or a solicitor enables you to explore options that you just might not have thought of. And of course, costs are relevant too. Different options will be appropriate for different people. But I really want to stress to all of you here today that the LPA you end up with, once it's been registered, is exactly the same document, no matter what route you choose. There's not a gold standard LPA, and there's not such a good one if you do it yourself. It is absolutely fine. There's a set fee to register the LPA. It's £82 at the moment, unless you're entitled to remission or exemption. If there's a mistake, obviously you may have to pay to reapply. If you're asking a solicitor or a consultant to do your LPAs, do your homework. Compare things like costs, certificate provision, and are repeat applications included? A very busy slide, but Danny, I know you're passing that on. All of these questions are worth asking. So if you do decide to go down the LPA route, and if you had more time, I'd explore how many of you have done this now. You can use the online version or paper-based versions, which you can download. If you do the LPA online, it'll need printing because, like ADRTs, you need a wet rather than an electronic signature. And this is just an example of what you see as you work through that process online. So this is a dummy page I created for my client called Jessica Rabbit. And the arrow shows where, once the LPA has been registered by the Office of the Public Guardian, you'll see perforation marks and a stamp. And a good learning point is that the letters received throughout that really long 20-week period are not proof the LPA is valid. I had a client email me this morning and say, Claire, it's fantastic. I've got the letters. My LPA has been registered. I said, no matter what I've said to that client, you'll receive letters. What you're receiving is just a letter of confirmation. The actual document has been sent to me, I bind it, and I send it on to the client. And as healthcare professionals, it's really important you know that. You need to check the document and not the letter. So I mentioned that 20-week period. What happens in those 20-week periods? It goes through waiting, received, checking, and processed. So it takes a long while. You can't do it when you think that you need one. So I've mentioned already 77% of people think that you can set up an LPA when it's needed. Can you imagine facing a catastrophic situation, the sudden loss of capacity, and either waiting for that LPA to be registered or finding out it's too late to do one? And that's one of the reasons, the main reason I advocate so strongly to consider lasting power of attorney as just something as everyday life planning. So I'm guessing you're getting a picture of how important I think LPAs are. And I find it shocking that for something so vital for all of our, life administration, around about 1% of us have a lasting power of attorney in place. I know, Usha, you may have some more data for me, which is more up to date. I look forward to that. I know this is a non-reflective audience, but if you're happy to, raise your hand if you have got a lasting power of attorney in place. Not bundles, but thank you for that, and I appreciate that's a very personal question. So around about 40% of us have a will, and around about less than 1% have a lasting power of attorney. So the key takeaway is a lasting power of attorney can be made independently using a solicitor or using a lasting power of attorney consultant. So what happens if you don't have a lasting power of attorney in place? Realistically, if you don't have a lasting power of attorney in place, it means applying to the Court of Protection. We've mentioned that already. And the differences are capacity. You go to the Court of Protection when you don't have capacity. You do an LPA when you do have capacity. Choice. Making a lasting power of attorney enables you to choose who will speak for you. If you go to the Court of Protection, that decision is made by the court. Process, it's longer and more complicated to do the Court of Protection. Length of time to set up, it's longer, and it's more expensive to go to the Court of Protection than to do your lasting power of attorney. So for me, the most critical difference is choice. You get to choose an attorney, whereas a deputy is appointed for you. And again, you can hear more on the podcast that you'll be sent afterwards. So very quickly, whistle stop. Danny, this isn't enough time. You're mean to me. You're mean. I'm trying to go fast.
Sorry, you did say 30 minutes. I was going to give you 35.
I did say 30 minutes. That was foolish. Don't listen to me again. So some common pitfalls: using the wrong form, contradictory instructions, or not asking for help. I have to say the Office of the Public Guardian are phenomenal in providing help. So I would always, if you're doing your LPAs, use them to ask for help. And a challenge: which one takes priority? An advanced decision to refuse treatment or a lasting power of attorney? Short for time, but I'll give you the answer. It's simply the most recent document will take priority. So they're both super important documents. If you have an ADRT in place and you do your LPA, make sure that you either update it, redate it, or redo it. Another way I explain the differences between them is a sort of a funnel, a broad funnel. An LPA is a wide, broad funnel, whereas giving your attorneys the ability to speak for you, but not giving them the actual words to say, whereas an ADRT is far, far narrower, refusing a specific treatment in a specific circumstance. This slide just explores some experiences at the Open Justice Court of Protection. Again, you've got the link there to find out more. I'd highly, highly recommend you to find out more through the Open Justice Court of Protection project. You can attend free webinars to learn about their work and receive support after to blog about the hearings. I've attended 7 now, 6 online and 1 in person, and the learning I've had them has been absolutely phenomenal. So I highly recommend attending the Open Justice Court of Protection. I don't have time to read out the key points of this blog, but I do want to summarise my blog from attending this Open Justice Court of Protection, where a trust failed to consult with Mrs. W's attorneys, despite her having a valid lasting power of attorney. So I call for better education around advanced care planning in general, and I suggest to ensure correct frameworks are in place, there must be appropriate awareness and education. And this summarised systematic failure of a trust to educate, implement and monitor processes around LPAs. It really is important. For something, as a nurse, we get so little training on, is vitally important. I'm going to whiz through these slides because there's not time. I'm really sorry that you've escaped after lunch, so you haven't got to do the Q&A session. So my quick takeaway is it's never, ever too early to do your lasting power of attorney, but it can be certainly left too late. So I've covered a huge amount in a short amount of time, and arguably I say I've missed out more than I've covered in, and Danny knows you've attended lots of my webinars already. But what I will say is you'll find a wealth of information about lasting power of attorney on my and advanced care planning on my website. And if you find there's a question that's not answered there, and I had a question from a member of the audience this morning about LPAs in the prison service, which has been fantastic, and we're exploring now. So if you've got a question, contact me, and you might find that your question becomes a future blog or a podcast and help other people. So I feel I'm romping through these slides. I'll be happy to do more in any detail for anybody, but drawing to a very quick end now, I'm going to leave you all with 3 actions. If you haven't made your lasting power of attorney, make a pledge to do so this year. And if you have got your lasting power of attorney in place, pledge to have the conversations that matter with your attorneys. And if you work in a team or organisation, I really urge you to review how you document, teach and raise awareness about lasting power of attorney. And my closing message is make sure the people you trust the most can make the decisions that matter the most. Thank you.
Hold on. We might have a little question. So we haven't got much time, but I know there'll be loads of questions, but I can only maybe take one. Yep.
Hi, Claire. How is the Office of the Public Guardian assured that a donor has capacity to appoint an attorney when registering an LPA? Is the person's GP contacted? I'm thinking about people not having capacity, but the forms are completed by someone dishonest, including the independent witness.
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. So the person that assures capacity is called the certificate provider throughout the process. There's multiple answers to that question. So the person that assures is the certificate provider. The certificate provider is a person that has known the donor for 2 years or more, or is a healthcare professional. The second answer to that question is what checks and balances are in place. And I'm afraid my answer to that is once it goes to the Office of the Public Guardian, unless they have a reason to suspect, or unless there is an objection and there is a 4-week wait period, then the form, if there are no other challenges or problems with the form, like the wrong date or any other causes of objection, the form will be registered. That is where the Court of Protection comes into play, and challenges to registered lasting power of attorneys are taken to the Court of Protection. So a long question and multiple answers to that.
Thank you so much, Claire. And I would really recommend watching some of the live court cases, and it's great for revalidation, but it's so interesting. Thank you, Claire. Thank you. So thank you, Claire, so much. And I just want to put one more point in from Claire's podcasts, which are absolutely amazing. I have learnt so much about advanced care planning and everything in general. So I would really urge you to listen. They're only 45 minutes long, some are shorter, but they are a wealth of knowledge. Okay, so wonderful. I'm going to welcome our next speaker, James Norris. If you'd love to come up to the stage. James is the founder of My Wishes and of the Digital Legacy Association. So welcome, James.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy. Can you give me 5 minutes heads up as well? Amazing. Okay, good afternoon, Norwich. Good evening and good morning for those watching it on the live stream, wherever you are, and thank you for the invitation to speak today. My name's James Norris, and for the last 12 or 13 years, I've explored the different ways in which we can use communication technology to improve end-of-life planning and end-of-life care. So in 2015, we launched the Digital Legacy Association that raises awareness around the importance of planning for death in today's digital world, and we'll talk about that in a minute. As part of the work for the Digital Legacy Association, we run an annual conference called the Digital Legacy Conference that takes place in a different city every year. And then for the last 3 years, we've been running a platform called My Wishes, which prior to that was called Dead Social, which we'll speak about again in the coming slides. So, theory. The ways in which we communicate has changed forever, and we're currently living in this digital migration phase from the physical world to the digital world, and it's a little bit messy. And during this transition, things relating to end-of-life planning, the way in which we remember our loved ones, etc., is also changing. But it's important to understand that death technology is not new. So the headstone, for example, is an early piece of death technology. But the ways in which we're interfacing with death is changing, and it's changing because of the internet and the innovations that that's brought. The first term we're going to look at is digital assets. So our digital assets are possessions that are purchased, stored, or created or made available online. And they can be stored across a variety of different platforms in a number of different places. So, first bit of audience participation. When did you last print a photograph that had you in that photo? Any people? Anyone? Shout it out. Last week? Okay, tell us more.
It was a really nice photo. Oh, sorry. It was a really nice photo of me and my late mum, and I wanted to put it on the dresser in our sitting room.
Amazing.
So I printed it, but before that, I've no idea.
Anyone else?
No.
Okay, next time I give this presentation, I'm going to say, except passport photos.
Every year I
Amazing. Wonderful. Okay.
My son was 30 in January. I had 400 photographs printed out, so we streamlined them across the kitchen for his birthday.
Right, you're a bad audience. Normally, people say, yeah, not for the last 4 years, 5 years, but it looks like you guys are really with it. Yes, it's great that so many people are still printing out photos. Put your hands up if you have a password on your mobile phone. Okay, keep your hand up if somebody else knows the password for your mobile phone. Yeah, you're a great audience. So according to our last digital death survey, 35% of people surveyed hadn't told anybody the password for their mobile phone. So when I was growing up, we used to have, next to the landline phone, we used to call it a landline, back then we called it the phone, and now we call it the landline phone. So next to the landline phone, there was like a phone book. And if there was a problem, we would be able to, let's say, I could call my uncles or aunties and be able to contact them that way. And if I had to arrange, let's say, my mum's funeral or my dad's funeral, those numbers would be there. But now my mum's phone book is digital behind her password-protected phone, and the photos that she takes are digital, and they're on her password-protected phone and on her password-protected computer, et cetera, et cetera. So, habits aren't really changing for many of these different things. It's just the way in which we capture, store, and share that information. The second term we're going to look at is digital legacy. And our digital legacy is what remains of us digitally once we die. And it can be created by us. It can be co-curated by us. So let's say, for example, on Facebook, if somebody posts something and you comment, and then there's, you can co-create content together, and that can inform your digital legacy. And then it can also be kind of informed by somebody after you've died as well. So if somebody were to say, for example, can you remember James? He's the guy who gave the presentation, and everybody had printed out photos, and he thought that none of us would. If you posted that in a blog post, that would form part of my digital legacy, despite it being posted after I've died. And our digital legacy is becoming increasingly important. So on the left, you can see Fantasy Football League. On the right, you can see a Facebook page. The Facebook page is from my housemate from university's Facebook account. Ben died of adult sudden death syndrome, and the photos that he took of us are on his Facebook account, and the messages that we've shared between each other at university and afterwards are stored within our conversations on Facebook. After Ben's, and Ben's Facebook account means more to me than where his ashes are scattered. I won't go to a religious place of worship to remember him, but I will go to his Facebook account to remember him. On the other side, Fantasy Football League, that was set up by a mutual friend, Andrew. And here, Ben, we're able to continue bonds with Ben in a non-morbid, contextually relevant way to the person he was and to the people who we are. So we're able to speak about football in one comment, and then we're able to speak about Ben in the next. And again, it's a way in which we can kind of stay connected to Ben in a way that's relevant to us. And according to our research, our digital legacy is becoming increasingly important. It's increasingly important from a societal perspective and also a family history perspective as well. But let's say, for example, I didn't place much value on my Instagram account, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to make plans to delete it after I've died. That's my decision. It's my photos. It's my content. But by me making those plans and deciding and making plans for it to be deleted, my friends, my family, loved ones, etc., might feel feelings of secondary loss because they no longer have access to those photos and videos that was once there. Despite what the media tell you, there's no such thing as a digital afterlife or a digital eternity. I was actually watching a mainstream TV documentary yesterday, and it said something like, although we're not going to be here forever, our digital footprint or digital legacy will be here into perpetuity. It won't be. It will only be there, on these different social networking sites for as long as it's profitable for them to do so. So the people who own our digital legacy is a mixture. It's a mixture of you. It's a mixture of your loved ones. It's a mixture of your family. But we can only have influence in our digital legacy. So, for example, just like you could extend the longevity of a printed photo by putting it into a picture frame, you can extend the longevity of a digital photo by sending it to people, by telling the story, by perhaps, again, printing it out like all of you seem to do. So there's lots of ways to ensure that there's longevity within the photos, videos, content, etc., that's important to us. There's things that we can do as well on some of the mainstream platforms that we use. So, for example, if you purchase the same song from Amazon and Apple, the licenses, the individual user license that you have differs on each. So if you purchase a song on Apple, you can't download it locally and pass it on to your next of kin. However, if you purchase the same song on Amazon, you can download it locally and pass it on to your next of kin. Facebook, as I've kind of alluded to earlier, for many people is becoming a place to remember their loved ones and kind of share conversations about them, etc. And Facebook have got a legacy contact feature and a tributes feature that we assisted them with not so long ago. And that's a great way to be able to pass on access to certain aspects of your account. Apple iCloud, a couple of years ago, launched their legacy contact. So again, if you use iCloud photos, etc., you're able to pass on different levels of access depending on what your wishes are. And then there's other platforms as well, and Google's actual inactive account manager is really, really good for people who, again, use Google Photos or YouTube or any of the Google services to ensure that content isn't lost and that, once somebody dies, there isn't issues administrating content. So ultimately, since launching in 2015, the Digital Legacy Association has argued that digital legacy conversations should form a holistic approach to advanced care planning. For some people, it would just be a case of perhaps telling their next of kin their password, but for other people, it's much more complex. There's lots of things that we can do with people's digital legacies when plans haven't been made. So let's say, for example, I was not friends with Samuel L. Jackson, and I had to arrange his funeral. Now, Samuel has uploaded a number of different photos to Facebook already, and he's vetted them. He's said, do you know what? These are a true reflection of me. So if we weren't friends and I had to arrange his funeral, I could click on those photos and use them. Reimagining this within the healthcare environment and patients and families that you might support. If, for example, a mother or father isn't friends with their son or daughter on Facebook and they're looking for a photo to use, this might be one way to do it. Whereas before, let's say, for example, with this 1880-something obituary news post that was sent out in the local newspaper, now with communities and friendship groups existing online and migrating again from the physical to the digital in many regards, when it comes to carrying out a traditional task, in this case, an obituary, it might be suitable in some circumstances to post something on Facebook. If you were to do so, you might want to change the post to public so that it could be shared, because quite often, in the UK, funerals are public spaces, newspapers are public spaces, ensuring that as many people know about the upcoming ceremony. And there's a range of different tutorials on the Digital Legacy Association website. Everything that we create and provide is free to use. We've got lots of different bilingual leaflets, large format leaflets, etc., and a conversations framework to highlight the different ways in which digital legacy conversations might be included within advanced care planning conversations. So, for example, if you're doing a ward round and somebody's on their mobile phone, it might be easier to open up a conversation about the importance of their photos, if they've made any plans for their photos, rather than talking about, would you like to have an advanced care planning conversation? Because it's dehumanized. You're talking about ownership, you're talking about content, and you're talking about, memories and longevity, rather than, the demise of their physical health, etc. So when it comes to having conversations around digital legacy, it can be a soft, suitable approach in some circumstances. The Digital Legacy Association also do a lot of work around policy and trying to highlight both within the legal sector, but also within blue chip and health and social care sector, the importance of this area for society. We've got a copy on our website that you can use, download, alter, edit, delete as you see fit. As I mentioned before, we run the annual conference every year. For the last few years, it's been part of EAPC, but next year it's going to be with another organisation to be announced in 3 weeks' time. And as you've all attended today, if you want to be a champion in some way, shape or form and help highlight the importance of this area, there's slides that you can use and, again, edit, alter and delete to help empower those who support the communities that you serve. The leaflets can all be downloaded, the posters can all be downloaded. As mentioned, these are bilingual and they're open for all. So we've now gone through the digital legacy scope. How long do I have left for my wishes? 15 minutes, excellent, right, on time. So, okay, so whereas the Digital Legacy Association has ultimately trains and raises awareness around these different areas, it's become increasingly apparent that, advanced care planning has kind of sat within this kind of medicalized silo, and it's everyone's business. It's something that needs to be done earlier, as many of the speakers have spoken about today. And we've tried to address this by creating a platform that helps empower society to make plans for their whatever their wishes are, at whatever relevant moment of life stage they are at that any given moment in time. So this is the version, so it's free for everybody to use across the globe. In the UK, we have advanced care planning and will writing, but if you're streaming from a different country outside of the UK, those two features will be removed. But let's stick with the UK version. Okay, so getting more complex. This is a hyper-localized version. So depending on where you are in the UK, you sometimes get a different version based on the health ecosystem, depending on the support charities that's available, and a number of other factors. But this version has been created for Newham Council, and it supports an area in London. And once, say, for example, I've logged in, I can change my banner, etc. I might think, at this moment in my life, I would like to do my funeral playlist. So when I was younger, actually, when I was at my dad's funeral, I was really into Guns N' Roses. And I remember thinking that I don't want church music to be played, I want to have Guns N' Roses played at my funeral. So that was the first time I ever conceptualized any form of advanced care planning or future care or end-of-life planning. So here you can see, this is my slightly eclectic mix funeral playlist, but if this computer's connected to Twitter, I don't know if it is. If it's someone's account, I apologize. Nope, it's not. So, so I can tweet, for example, which songs I want to have played at my funeral. I can share this information. I can share information that I'm happy and comfortable sharing at any moment in my life. If I wanted to upload my own obituary, I'm able to do so. And if I want to just simply state what my funeral wishes are, I'm able to download and save and share it in accordance with my wishes. When it comes to planning for my digital life, again, I'm able to scroll down, choose which social media account I want to make plans for within a digital and social media world. There's a range of different tutorials here. a range of different tutorials, again, within the tutorial section, and really make plans for the things that I want to happen, and make sure that my digital legacy in this circumstance remains. When it comes to advanced care planning, I'm able to say what I would or wouldn't want to have happen, add my different preferred places of care, etc. And I'm actually going to download this one, so you can see it once it's downloaded. It's been saved and downloaded. Okay. Up. Okay. Yeah, I think it's because we're on a NHS connection. I'm not really sure what's happened there, but yeah. So that gives like a brief overview as to how My Wishes works and how we integrate the service into different health ecosystems. I'm going to show you very quickly my public My Wishes account. So just like on Twitter or on Instagram, everybody gets their own handle. So, for example, my handle is /James Norris on Twitter, and it's /James Norris on Instagram, and it also is on My Wishes. So if I go to my public My Wishes account, this is my public URL. After I die, one of my brothers, here's one, here's another, are able to confirm with My Wishes that I've died, and I'm able to say goodbye within the goodbye messages section. So I've created a series of goodbye messages, the initial goodbye message, and then some scheduled goodbye messages. I've assigned both my brothers as digital executors, and at a time after my death, they're able to confirm that I've died with the platform, and then my messages are sent out over time. Now, any scheduled messages that I'd created, let's say, for whilst I was alive, so if I'd created a message for yesterday, that would have been backlogged, and then they're sent out once a week until that backlog has been sent. So I'm able to, just like a physical Victorian memory box, I'm able to replicate that within the digital world. I've shared my bucket list, so this is sharing now because I'm still alive, so I experienced Day of the Dead. I've played the guitar in public, but I haven't driven around the UK in a caravan. So I'm able to, again, prioritize what matters most to me at this moment in time and share it if I wish to do so. We looked at the logged-in version of the funeral playlist, but this is the public version once it's been shared. I mentioned before as well that you can leave an obituary or a funeral message, which, again, I've also done. I hope to see you all there. And if I were to require postural care support and had a postural care assessment, any postural care assessment that's uploaded can be rapidly available in clinical and non-clinical settings using a memorable word. So rather than just a traditional postural care assessment being a PDF, you're able to upload videos, rich media, etc., that can be accessed on a mobile device or on a computer, etc. So that's my public space. And I'm just going to quickly open this. 5 minutes? OK. So one of the people and colleagues who I had the fortune of working with was Lucy Watts. And Lucy, for example, she helped and assisted with the postural care assessment aspect of My Wishes, and we worked on various different things over the years. And with permission, again, she's allowed us to share some of the content that she sent out and the plans that she made prior and post her death. So, for example, here's 2 messages that she posted, I think in the weeks after she died. This is her bucket list, so some of the things that she achieved and some of the things that she didn't achieve. And again, her funeral playlist are the songs that she wanted to have played at her funeral. So again, when it comes to thinking about these different aspects, there's a number of things that we can do both for ourselves and for our loved ones, both now and in the future as well. So there's a little bit of digital self-care homework that you're all invited to do. If you do it, wonderful. I won't be marking any of your homework, so if you don't do it, that's fine as well. But everything, as I said, on My Wishes and Digital Legacy Association is free, so if you would like to document your digital and social media will within My Wishes, feel free to do so. On the Digital Legacy Association, it's an Excel document that links through to up-to-date resources about the different platforms. And one last thing I'd recommend listening to is Jane Bakewell's We Need to Talk About Death, the My Digital Legacy episode. What I've spoken about today is very much the tech side, and she talks really about the human side and the human impact of what happens. And due to time today, I've tried to condense as much as I can within these 50 or so slides. So thanks a lot for your time. I hope that it was informative, and if you'd like to get in touch in any way, shape or form, please feel free to do so. Thanks a lot.
So thanks so much, James. We've got time for one question, but we are going to do questions at the end. Yep.
This is from Victoria online. If someone possesses cryptocurrency, such as Bitcoin, how could they incorporate it into their advanced care planning strategy?
So good question. So Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are seen as a financial asset. So in the UK, it should be included as part of your last will and testament. Now, because your last will and testament is a public document, it shouldn't, like the details shouldn't be in there. So the encryption keys should not be included within your last will and testament. However, information about the crypto should be included in there. So if the person who's streaming is from the UK, that's in accordance with UK law. When it comes to passing on crypto, you can do it through the wallet. So you can pass on, if, for example, you use something like Binance. Some of the wallets allow you to add a second person. Others don't. But if the underlying thing that underpins it is the kind of the larger code, so you can pass on that code and the details to a loved one, and then they would have access. But in accordance with UK law, it should be included as part of your estate. So it wouldn't include within the advanced care planning aspect.
Thank you, James. Thank you. Another round of applause. So thank you again, James. Fascinating. My mind still boggles with all of that technological information. I know. I'm older than I look, honestly. Well, or younger than I look. So thank you so much for that. And I would definitely recommend, again, for people to really delve into those websites, really kind of try it out on yourself. You know, that's the way I've learned. Really kind of get into there, because then that's how we're human again, so we can do our own, we can share with other people. It's a great way to be able to walk in someone else's shoes. And I think, as we've learnt from today, we all need to be doing it now anyway, don't we? So, bear with me, because James has mucked up my PC with this technological stuff. It's not escaping, James. Sorry. Is that because you've got that thing in?
So it's because...
So I'm going to let you do that. So we're now going to have the panel. So it's going to be Advanced Care Planning Journey, and I'm going to invite the panel up onto the stage. We've got Sammy, who's going to be our chairperson. We've got Claire Fuller, one of the panel. We've got Susie. Welcome, Susie. And we've got Lou, palliative care consultant. You've got all the details in your pamphlet or on the schedule. So we're just going to set up, and then we're going to go from there. It's going to be about half an hour, and then I'm going to leave at the end a good 15, 20 minutes for questions, okay? Because I know we've really not had time for questions today. But still, keep putting those questions through on the live stream, and we will answer that at the end. We might not be able to get through all of them, but if there's certain questions, what I can do is, if it's for certain speakers, I can send them to certain speakers, and hopefully can give you back some answers. So thank you very much.
Well, what a day, my goodness. I've learned so much, actually. It's wonderful. Okay, this is changing on its own. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so I will introduce everyone again. We have got Dr. Louise Grant.
I'm going to stop that though, because it's kind of having a. Don't know why it's doing that. Stop. I don't know if that will work.
Okay, hi. We have Dr. Louise Grant, who is a palliative care consultant up here, and we have Susie Taylor, who is a patient. And I don't know if you guys know this other woman named Danny Ayer. She is a specialized palliative care nurse educator, and of course Claire Fuller, who we've met, who is an advanced care planning advocate, educator, coach, and LPA consultant. So what a panel. Cue the clapping. Okay. So I would like this esteemed panel to prove to us that they practice what they preach. So we are going to ask each of them how they have incorporated advanced care planning into their own personal lives. Okay, and I'm going to start with you.
I have, can you hear me?
Yeah, maybe you need to hold it a little
Okay.
closer.
So I have a will, which includes the guardianship for my children, and I have a lasting power of attorney for health and welfare and for finance. And I guess those are the only formal things that I have, but I definitely have spoken to my next of kin about what my preference would be in more detail around my care.
I'm a bit of a control freak, so I've got pretty much everything going. I have my power of attorneys that Claire very kindly helped me with. I have a will, and alongside that, I've got a statement of wishes, which is, you know, odds and sods beside it that I'd like given to people. I've got a respect form, up-to-date respect form. I've completed my future care handbook, which Danny very kindly gifted to me. Yeah, I've done my will. Did I mention that? I probably have, yes. And I've also planned my funeral, including to the last detail, music, flowers, people, venue, scattering of ashes, the whole lot. I think that's it.
Oh, Susie, are you thinking about your digital legacy now?
Oh, I've got a list. I've got a secret list of all my passwords
Okay.
that my husband's got access to. Yeah. And a list of people to contact when I die.
Okay.
As well.
Oh, that's super organized. Have you been organized your whole life?
Yes.
So you're just being you. Yeah. Okay.
I'm a PA for a CEO and 4 directors, so it's like herding cats all the time.
So you're just being you.
I'm in charge of them. So that's sort of, I think when I got diagnosed, my way of coping with it was...
This is your style.
Was doing that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, you're a great example of know your style.
Yes.
Absolutely. It just says it to the point, doesn't it? So what have I done? Because I talk a lot about it, don't I? So I've done my organ donation. I'm on the register because I keep talking about that. I'm also, I won't go on forever. I just did a little snaps because everyone else knows. Everyone who's been on my courses probably knows all my stuff anyway. Organ donating register. I've donated my brain to the brain bank, Parkinson's brain bank. I've also donated my body to UEA as well. I'm just like hedging all my... But so it's like plan A, plan B, plan C, because not everyone will take you, so it just depends. I have, I've also got my future care handbook. Is Zoe about there? Just trying to find her at the back. Yeah, I've now bought 5 my future care handbooks with my own money, I would say. And every time, I'm not going to do it anymore, Susie, but every time I see someone, I start talking about it, I just like, oh. everyone's like, oh my God, that's so amazing. So then I just end up giving them. So I'm out of pocket already. And my other one that I did, it's gone, and it's actually got all my stuff in it. So if anyone finds it, please can they let me know?
That's awkward.
Whoever was in the last advanced care planning thing that I did, it's got Tina Turner in my playlist, so you'll know it's mine. What else have I done? So I've done that, because that's got my advanced statement in there, and I've also done my Norfolk and Norwich advanced statement as well, just in case. I've got it in every different bits. And I haven't done my digital legacy. That was my pledge that I have to do that, and I'm very bad at that. And I've pretty much done my LPA, so I've just got a little bit left to do with Claire. Oh, what are you giving me?
Right, put your money. Danielle, put your money where your mouth is. You've been telling me this now for 4 or more months. Please, could you sign this wretched document now? You got it with you? I have.
Here's the papers.
Okay, so some live teaching. Somebody was asking about the role of a certificate provider. I'm going to live act the role of a certificate provider. So Danny and I have been talking about her lasting power of attorney. We've had those discussions. We're not going to go share the intimate detail, but we've shared the discussions of what Danny wants. It's not just a piece of paper. This is a really important discussions we've had. When you do your lasting power of attorney, it has to be signed in the correct order, in the correct pen, wet signature. So Danny's done her forms online. This is far better than my teaching. This is showing it in action. So the forms have been checked. Page 6 has been checked. This is a health and welfare lasting power of attorney. So thank you. Page 6 has been checked. Danny, could you please now sign, I'm bossy, page 10. Thank you. I'll witness your signature.
Yes, please do.
Okay, Danny, date it.
Oh, yes.
Well, what a fantastic day. Lasting power of attorney on
Advanced Care Planning Day. And you're all my witnesses. Thank you, Claire. Fantastic.
We're going to sign the certificate provider. So should this end up in the Court of Protection, I am signing to say Danny has got capacity and I am taking responsibility. So I am Danny's certificate provider. So in answer to that question earlier, watch a live certificate provision.
Thank you, Claire. You didn't tell me that, Claire. Come on, you've got to get over and say your advanced care planning stuff now. It has actually taken months. This is probably the third time.
Of applause for Claire for getting Danny all organized, signed away. Good for you. I want one, but in Canada we don't have those. But should I move here, I will come to you. Okay, Claire, what have you done?
Okay, so it's a real honour to share, and I hope just normalises advanced care planning. We are all in this game together. There's not this artificial line between doctors, nurses, patients. This is all of us sitting here in front of all of you. So what have I done? Dan, you're going to have to shut me up here because I've got a long list. So I've realised since the day dot, I'm a stubborn, headstrong individual. That's my style. I know my style. I had both of my children at home. My first baby was born at home. My second baby was born at home. So guess where I want to end my life as well? It's easy to see. So what matters most to me is my family, my home, me being in charge of me and having as little medical intervention as possible. So that's what matters to me. That's my foundation, and that's why I've made those decisions. I've done organ donation, and I've revisited since the law has changed as well. So since the opt-out law, I've redone that. I've done a will. I've done my lasting power of attorney, because that would be rather embarrassing if I hadn't.
That would be.
You could, yeah, that would be shameful. I interviewed the incredible Holly Leon-Hawke. I believe you know Holly as well. And after speaking to Holly, who is a holistic funeral director, I thought, I want you. So I spoke with Holly to organise my funeral. I've done my own advanced decision to refuse treatment as well. And interestingly, when I did my ADRT, that was when I did my advanced statement of wishes and preferences to underpin that document. So Usha mentioned earlier about how important that statement is as well. And I think as a nurse, I downplayed that advanced statement of wishes and preferences and thought, oh, that's not so important. But my goodness me, that really underpins all of our decisions. James, thanks to you, I have started but not completed my digital legacy. And the reason that it matters to me is my website, is my blogs, and is my podcasts. So I have made provisions in my will to ensure that those platforms will still be paid. So I have a digital executor in my will. So I hope I get a brownie point from you. So thank you. It's a long list. So that's my advanced care planning. Thank you for letting me share.
Well, it sounds like you have your house in order, Claire. Yeah, okay, I have this microphone. This is working, right? Okay. So thank you for sharing. So we have a little bit of work to do maybe around the digital piece, but I would say A+ all around here. Excellent. I would like to shift to talking about where does advanced care planning have a place in the last year, months, days, hours. So which one of you would like to speak to advanced care planning in the final year?
So the last year, as you've probably seen throughout the whole day, we've been really following Claire's model, because for me, Claire's model is a real how-to guide of how to do advanced care planning. You've got the universal principles, which are great information, but there's no real how-to guide to do it. So I found Claire's model really helpful. So we've done the foundations today, haven't we? We've done all the windows, but we've got that one window that's very, very small and is at the end, and that's end of life. And everyone thinks when we talk about advanced care planning or future planning, it's all about end of life, but we kind of proved today that we've not really spoken in depth about end of life, have we? Not really. And we're leaving it right to the 11th hour, Sammy, the 11th hour, to actually talk about that very, very last window. So in the last year, I'll say a little bit and then pass on. For me, when you get to that last year of life, it's really about as well recognizing that last year, because some people who've maybe not had the chance to have those conversations, who don't know where they are within their illness journey, if they are at the beginning, middle, later stage and coming towards the end, they might have not have had those conversations. They might not have been lucky to actually be here today and had the experience of today. So we really want to be able to encourage people to have those conversations at that last, when we're kind of hitting that last year of life, because that's really the final point. Again, you might use the GSF, the surprise question. Would you be surprised if that person died within the next 12 months? That's a great, I use that a lot. It's a great way to kind of help you identify people that might be in those last stages. There's lots of other tools like SPICT, but I'm not going to go into that. So for me, I think that would be it. The other thing I'd like to mention is about particular treatments, that if you've not had the conversation about particular treatments, I know with Lou, I've learnt quite a bit, like things like ICDs. We've talked about that before, haven't we, Lou? That if people have got ICDs, have we had the conversation about turning those off? And also the conversation about dialysis. We haven't got Fergus here today talking about renal. But again, lots of people who are on dialysis treatments. I know we've got Naomi here today. Where is she? Yeah. So you will be able to definitely kind of confirm to me with people who are living, unfortunately, with renal failure, that those conversations don't happen, not even in that last year of life. I can see Naomi religiously shaking her head. So for me, that would definitely be the main things. Does anyone else like to share?
I guess the other thing I would say is about building relationships with your caregiver. I think the value is recognizing them in the last year of life, but the other thing is building a relationship where you really get to know the person you're looking after, so that over time you feel confident that you've got enough of a feel for them that you could make a judgment about what they may choose, even if it hasn't been explicitly discussed or annotated in any of their documentation. So I guess that year, when people in a period of stability, is a really good opportunity to really get to know what they're about.
Anyone else? The year?
Yeah, I think you've covered it, and I think thank you for your comments on renal as well. And I think it's all of those long-term illnesses, and I'm coming right back to the beginning of that presentation this morning, and Sammy and Sien. we know those stories of an illness, don't we? We know the story of an illness. We know the chapters. And I would argue, you know, that last year, we know where that is going, and certainly we need to be having those conversations, and we're just not. So my message is just about upstreaming and echoing what you have said in that last year. And of course, there aren't strict boundaries. We're not saying you have got 1 year left. We're just saying, as Danny said, would I be surprised if something happened in that last year? And let's nudge these conversations along. If somebody has diabetes, I'll be thinking and having conversations about how that medication may change over time, not because we're giving up, not because we're pulling out, but we're thinking about benefit and burden. So really echoing what my co-panelists have said as well, setting the scene for advanced care planning, the changing nature of hope.
Thank you.
Very important.
Does anyone want to comment on the months, days, hours?
I'll take on months, because I guess that's where I look after a lot of people. I think once you find yourself in that months section, it can be quite difficult to identify. But you guys talk a bit about the tipping point, don't you? When things start getting a bit more tricky, people are encountering problems related to their disease. At that point, perhaps I can foresee a bit more about what the trajectory would look like, what the mode of deterioration and death may look like. And with that might be the time to start talking more specifically about the sorts of problems you're anticipating people having. You know, for example, talking about, I've noticed that you're having more problems with your mobility as a result of your disease in your bones. I wonder if, over time, your reduced mobility is going to result in an increased risk of infection. What should we do? So maybe like getting down to the nitty-gritty of what you're anticipating. So I do more about that. And then I guess making sure that you have thought about who your inner team, the inner sanctum are going to be. Who are going to be the people providing you with care? Are they going to be your family? Or have you thought more about having external care? Who are going to be the people with whom all the information is going to be shared? Some of the more detail. I guess all with the aim that when you get to the weeks and days bit, nothing feels like it's happening in a hurry and nothing's feeling too unexpected, because I think the morbidity, psychological morbidity, comes with the unexpected stuff. Anything else to say?
I'm thinking of Tommy this morning and how, you know, it is around that last month where a person will begin to need intimate care. And so you probably experience the same, where we're starting to talk to people about, you know, who in your inner crew would you want to provide that, provide that care for you, and are they willing to do it? So it's a, as Catherine Mannix would say, a tender conversation to have. Yeah, thank you.
And yeah, I just want to echo that. It's really that ripple effect, like in your book. And I think, as we can even hear from Tommy today, that carers are so important, and whoever that carer would be, like we said, it could be your best friend Bob, it could be your neighbour Jim, whoever's your inner crew, your village, whoever's going to be your backup team. It's again making sure that they are so involved, and this shouldn't be at the last days, as we know, it should be right from diagnosis, because I can't remember if it's you, Claire, or Sammy said that being a carer is a diagnosis of itself. Was it?
Oh, I want to.
Oh, that was you, yeah.
No, I don't think it was, but I want to be the person who said that.
Was it you, Claire?
Well, I'll have it.
Yeah, I can't remember. But anyway, but I do think it is a carer diagnosis. It is, because you didn't, as a carer, you didn't hope for that, or you didn't want that, and you're just put in that position. So therefore, it's your own diagnosis within itself. So it is.
Oh, Sienna's saying I did say that.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I thought it was. It couldn't have been me. I've just copied everyone. So yeah, so definitely. So I just wanted to echo that. I think the other thing from a clinical head is, and I know my team would echo that, it's making sure things are all in order. Like, we deal with a lot of patients who are going home on a fast track, continuing healthcare, and making sure everything's in place. Because if we've gone through all that importance of finding out what matters most, and having those conversations. We want to make sure all of our ducks are in our row. So, for example, making sure, like Fabio is nodding his head here in front of me, like the yellow folder's in the right place with all the documentation. Again, making sure that anticipatory medications, so those just-in-case medications are there, because if that person has said they don't want to come back into hospital, we need to make sure that not only there's support, physical support, there is the medicines there as well, and they've got access to the right services at the right time, so they don't have to come in. So I think that is another element of it as well. I don't know if anybody else wants to share.
So I will take your fast track and raise you one, Danny, and I'll take yours and raise you one as well. Gosh, I've just had a memory blip there. I had it in my mouth.
Pass it to Susie then. It'll come back, Claire.
Come back. Come back.
Yeah, come back, Claire.
Sort of from the patient's point of view, I just wanted to say that having gone from being diagnosed and being incredibly sick to being reasonably stable and still here, annoying my doctors, Lou and other people in my brilliant team have always said to me, when things change and when you need to do something different, I'll tell you. So I kind of feel like, not that I can relax because it's always in your head, but I know that when things do change and I need to start making choices and decisions, those decisions have already been considered, but I know that Lou and the team will say to me, this is the time you need to do things. So it kind of feels like sort of a backup, like a little bit of a safety net that I know that I'll be told.
Yeah.
But not everyone is, I know.
Not everyone has Lou.
No,
So-
and she's mine, so
She's yours.
you
We won't
can't.
take her away. We're not touching Lou.
My team are just mine, but that makes me feel
Yeah, a sense of-
supported,
Yeah.
and that as things change, I'll know to.
This is a
Make
ideal
decisions.
relationship we have here.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I'm very lucky.
For those
In a way.
people who don't have Lou, this is where we're coming at in our book, is to help people self-identify when they might be entering into the last year, the last months, the last weeks, days, if they don't have a Lou in their life. But it is some assurance to the person, isn't it, that you'll know when things are changing. Yeah, great.
Just say on that, because I can't hear you. The one thing that I would say on that is the greatest thing that happened for you was that you got referred to us as soon as you were diagnosed. And no one knew what the future held, but we've known each other all that time, and in that time we've enjoyed like really great periods of stability and really getting to know exactly what to do, haven't we? So actually, we've done a good job together, but the person that did the best job was referring you early and has allowed us all this time, and you all the time, to plan and get your ducks in a line.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it on to you, Claire, but I just want to say as well that it's
Claire's
not...
going to forget again.
Sorry, one more thing.
Give her the mic.
From a palliative care point of view, and it's so great to refer to us, but I think it's, again, every clinician's responsibility to have those conversations, because each specialty knows their patient as well. And I know it's fabulous you've got this relationship, but there's so many other specialties that don't. And obviously refer to us if that's needed, but it's, like we said before, palliative care is good, is everyone's business, yeah.
I remember my point. I also wanted to reflect on listening to you guys was very much, I can hear the conversations that you've had them from the beginning, and I could hear that you'd invited yourself in and you'd had those conversations. What I had was an overwhelming sense of your safety.
Yeah.
Because you trusted your consultant, and that was beautiful to listen to. So from that profound point, I remembered what I was going to say to add. So when I developed the model of advanced care planning, because we all use different forms in different areas, it frustrates me. But in this phase, before we talk about those last days, I also wanted to draw attention to And I don't care what it's called, but there would be some sort of ceiling of care. There would be a respect document. There would be a treatment escalation plan. So my job, I don't see as sitting here and saying, nationally, we must have one form. But our job is to know what's in your area and what are you going to do to make sure your wishes in that last few months, if it was last few months, come to fruition. So that it was the plan. And that's going to be called something different. So that was before. Shall I do the last?
Yeah.
Last, looking at the time as well. So you've covered the last year. You've given a beautiful input from a patient's perspective as well. No, you did last year, months and patient. So I guess if I was going to summarise advanced care planning in the last days of life, I just want to reflect on the fact that how often is advanced care planning done in last days of life? How many mortality meetings have you been to? And planning, we could tick the box and say it was done, but it was done in 48 hours when we've lost that opportunity, that richness for advanced care planning. So the last days of life, I'm actually going to sit here as a panel member and say this is not the time to start advanced care planning, despite the fact it is the time that we generally start thinking about advanced care planning. So by now, by the very last days of life, we've had those beautiful conversations. We've made a lasting power of attorney because you've got 20 weeks to wait for it to be registered. So by now, we're simply thinking about the priorities of care for the dying person, generating an individualised care plan. We're making sure that we've converted potentially oral medications to a pump, and we're making sure we've got a chart in place to support that. And I really want to highlight something that we often miss as well, and that's explaining ordinary dying. So these are the things that I would say are important. Advanced care planning in the last days of life. It is not talking about what we've been talking about all morning.
Thanks, Claire. I echo that. Anybody else?
Final comments?
Yeah, I think that's totally true. Often what it feels like is you're doing a kind of rescue job, trying to take control of a situation that feels completely out of control for families and patients. So yeah, it's really difficult, and it's not the time to be doing it. And it's really shortchanging patients and their families, and puts families at risk of really significant psychological morbidity if they haven't had what they needed and didn't know what to expect. So I think making people know what to expect is incredibly important then.
Well, thank you very much to the panel, to everyone here, for witnessing the signing of Danny's documents, for appreciating the relationship between these two folks here, and Claire, for your great summary about the last hours not being the time to do this. I really appreciate this rich conversation. Yeah. Okay.
Big shout out to Susie for doing this. It's so brave. And we're so lucky.
No, and I'm going to echo that from Lou, because I have dragged you into so many things. I must say willingly, though, I invited her, not dragged her. I must change my language. But you're such an ambassador out there for really kind of, and it's so important we hear the patient's voice. And I hate calling you a patient because you're Suze. It's not about a patient, but it's so like the person who's, everyone's going through everything, but you are such a great ambassador, and I thank you so much. I really do. Don't move. Don't move. So just for the last 15 minutes, I'd like to invite the other speakers up onto the stage, and we're going to have an opportunity for questions. So that will be people in the audience, people live streaming. It's just an opportunity to, because we've not really had much time today for questions. So come on, Zoe. Come on, you all want to come down. Fantastic. Okay, thank you. Come on, you're taking your time. So, does anyone have any questions? Hands up. Oh, we've got one at the back, and then we'll come down. So, online.
The first one is says, thanks for a great conference with informative speakers. Why can't all these organisations get together to produce one form to cover everything? They think a reason so few people have completed all these forms to give their wishes as they don't know which form is best to use.
Thank you for that amazing question. Who would like to answer that? Claire, you've got the dummy prize.
Is that a member of the audience, sorry, or someone online?
It's all right. These, from me, they're all online. They're not my questions.
Okay, thank you. So what a fantastic question. So if I'm hearing correctly, it's why are there so many different forms? Is that the correct summary?
Yeah, why can't it be simplified into one form that people complete?
Okay. So in England, there isn't one form that we can use, and there are different reasons for that. We have the universal principles for advanced care planning, but there isn't one form. So the directive that we have, and I use the word directive as in instruction, not directive, is that everything is person-centred and every area must and should develop their own forms. Why can't we? I don't know. That's a political answer to be had. That's not a question that we can answer now. But that is the exact reason that I developed the model for advanced care planning that I developed. Because I've worked for 30 years to try and create a universal system and bang on doors, and that's not happening. For very valid reasons. There's not a right and a wrong. There's different ways of doing it. So using that model of advanced care planning, it doesn't matter what form you know. If you know that there's a statement of wishes and preferences, you need to find that out in your area, is something that I would advocate. Wales do have a more systematic approach. I know Canada, you have a different system as well. So it is the system that we have at the moment, so we need to understand the elements rather than to understand the right form to use. So the only two legal forms will be an advanced decision to refuse treatment, where there is set wording, and a lasting power of attorney, and there is only one way of doing a lasting power of attorney. So out of all of our discussions, that's the only thing I can say there is one way of doing. So sorry, that's not a definitive answer, but that's the most honest answer that I can give.
Thank you for that, Claire. And I think I think we need to stop thinking about, we keep giving ourselves problems, don't we? That which form should I, well, it doesn't matter what form. You've got the model now. You know what the windows are. You just tick the form, not tick it, but choose the form for that window. Does that sum it up?
I think, thank you for that summary. We can't influence that, but we can influence our knowledge of what lies behind that window, making sure we've done a legacy, making sure we thought of who would speak for us.
Thank you. I think there was someone in the audience who had a question. Yep.
Hi, probably a question for Claire. It's around deputyship. A lot of the time we work with people who have missed that boat with their capacity for lasting power of attorney, but finances is a really big barrier for deputyship. When, say, Kev lost capacity and I wanted to manage his finances and go for deputyship, who pays for that? Would that come out of his capital, or would that come out of mine as the person who was wanting to apply to manage his finances?
So there isn't a rule that says who it has to come out of as you're making that application, the COP forms, as far as I'm aware. So if he had lost capacity, sorry, I didn't get your name, sir, so I'm using the word he.
Kev.
If Kev had lost capacity, you wouldn't be able to start using his money, so therefore the answer I can give to the best of my ability will be coming out of your funds to apply, because you don't have the ability to manage his funds and dictate his money. So that would be my most honest answer.
Thank you.
Anyone else for questions? One down here. Oh, and then we'll come to Bonnie, and we've got one online as well. So, sorry.
Keep your hands.
Come on. So Bonnie first, and then we'll come back to you, Sam, after. Is it Sam? Put the hand up. Yeah. Oh, another lady.
This is a question to the previous about the documentation. Maybe I'm the odd one out. I'm a pediatrician, consultant pediatrician, attending this conference to understand what is available in the adult world. Because there is a pilot project, myself and my consultant colleague is doing in Norwich we have finished 1 year. It's a dedicated advanced care plan clinic and respite clinic for significantly complex young persons. We are using together, myself and Ellie, Dr. Brown, we are using the Together for Short Lives, that format. And some of my adult colleagues, we are transferring. And the cohort, what I'm talking is about completely different. They are not oncology, they are significantly neurological disabled, which we do care quite a lot. And now entering the adult world, whom the adult world may not have seen in the recent past. So what we were thinking, I may be telling them that by 19, when I discharge them, they may need different forms, additional forms, which is going to add more confusion, because what I'm hearing is each county or each trust may be having a different form. So already the transition is a big space. And the parents are so confused by the time, and I can feel their anxiety. And the reason for me attending this conference to understand a grip about all this LPA, code of production, and everything, when the parents ask me, many of them don't have a disability social worker for many reasons. So it's going to be another confusion for them when I say that, oh, we fill all these things, we assess your mental capacity, many of my patients are nonverbal, and you are going to fill another form. So what should I be telling my patients and parents?
So if I'm understanding correctly, there's a concern about different forms, and I will pass it through because I don't want to hog this microphone. So if I'm understanding correctly, it's an anxiety you're expressing about multiple forms and confusion. So I would flip that totally on its head and say, if you've got your forms in place, and if you know if somebody wants to document what matters most to them, you've got that by the forms that you mentioned already. That is fabulous, and I congratulate you. So you come at me and you say, Claire, that's great. So to document what matters most to my patient, this is what I use. To document if my patient doesn't want a treatment, this is what I do. And you apply that to your area. And to document a ceiling of care, you've got that in place. It sounds fantastic.
For pediatrics, then this one form is applicable throughout the UK. Mm-hmm. They can use anywhere. So that would be that is extremely easy for the parents and adolescents. By 19, when I discharge them, it's going to be more confusion for them.
So the conference and everything, the angles and other speakers do help me here, but the conference is aimed at adults and the adult world, and I fully appreciate the challenges with that transition that you're talking about. It is a challenging role. I don't know if anybody wants to come in about specific paediatric care.
Well, what you're saying is the transition from paediatric into adult, so when they're 19.
Yeah.
So in where we are, we do have an advanced statement, and it's probably because you just don't know about it. Yeah. Because many of the wards that I've been on, again, still just don't know about it, and it's all about communication, and it takes time. So we, in Norfolk, we have got set forms that people can use, so I'm more than happy to orientate you to those.
So maybe I should talk to you later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Was it Bonnie had a question next?
Can I just quickly give a plug? The National Mental Capacity Forum, their next webinar will be called Decision Making with 16 to 18-year-olds. Wow. So that's on the 23rd of May.
Hi. I wanted to ask, it might be a resource that you can share afterwards when you send up all the slides, but we've heard a lot about the decision-making processes in sort of now and whenever and within the last year. But I'm wondering if there are any resources that you can direct us to about decision-making for the last days and physiological dying, natural dying, and if there's anything specific that you would point us towards.
Does anybody want to answer that? Because when can I just clarify, is that okay? So when you're talking about resources, do you mean about what information there is out there about what to expect in the last
for people
days?
and their families?
That was the conference last year, but we can all Cian?
Well, I will just say that when I walked around at lunch to many of the tables, there were lots of pamphlets from the Dementia Society, Cancer Society, Macmillan Cancer about what to expect when you're dying, how to be cared for at home, what happens after you die, after grieving. There were a lot of books. Like it's heavier than the books we brought. So I think that there are resources it's probably going to be most helpful if it's disease specific, so that they can paint the picture of what that looks like.
Yeah, we also have at the end of our book chapters on what to expect when you're dying and the tipping point and what the last year, months, weeks, days, hours looks like as well, and what to expect. Yeah.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I guess I was thinking more like the forms and the frameworks that you have to complete, whether there's anything standardised for that kind of end stage care. I know there's a lot of information, but whether there's anywhere that we can collate that on an individual basis.
So by the time, if it's okay just to say, by the time you are in the last days, I was like, all of that should be done. So what I think you're talking about, is that right, Bonnie, is like the care plan?
Yeah.
So in the hospital where we are in Norfolk, and I know every area, and I don't want to get onto this topic because I know it can be a little bit political, but we do have an individualised plan of care for end of life, and we have that in hospital. And I know, because Fabio's sitting 2 seats next to you, that in the community they have the same. So it's not really about planning at that point. It's more focusing, like Claire was saying, in those last days. It's more getting everything together and making sure and reassessing if there's any changes, and making sure we are focusing that care on that person's wishes, values, beliefs and preferences. So we are lucky that we do have those forms, but again, it's definitely not a tick box. It's very much individualised and holistic. And I can echo from the other areas that normally most trusts, most areas do have their own forms. Is that right? Yeah. Does that help, Bonnie?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just, echo? So there won't be a set form that you will be given post-Liverpool Care Pathway. You just have to evidence that you've recognised, communicated, supported, involved, and made a plan and do. So you won't, Danny and I couldn't give you an exact form that's applicable everywhere, but we can say these are the principles that you have to have evidence of in your note keeping.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And conversation, documentation, and a guiding principles rather than a form.
And that comes with the 5 priorities of care, which, what Claire said, all about recognise, communicate, involve, support, plan and do. And that is fundamental. Thank you, Bonnie, for that question. An online question, please?
Yeah, sure. The question is that the ethical and legal advice in the case is that critical care support is believed to be clinically futile. However, the patient and his family want it and are pushing for it. What should they do?
Well, I mean, I think the most important thing is to have a conversation. Yeah. And so I had a number of these conversations at lunch about these kinds of conflicts. And of course, we all know these days everyone is super pressed for time. And it's often a matter of, look, we just have to get to the bottom line here. But the best recipe is open communication. I've witnessed some best interest decision-making meetings by really experienced consultants. And one of the things that I've seen that's really effective in those moments is where the physician is meeting with the family or with the patient, sometimes without the patient, and that they open by saying, I'm going to have to make this decision. The law is set up. This is not your decision to make about when to, but I want to include you as, I need your help. And you can see at least sometimes there's a kind of amazing sort of diffusing, because people are, first of all, confused about that, and it's a shifting of burden. So this is something we're going to do together, but ultimately the physician is the one who's going to have to make that decision. Obviously, sometimes there are conflicts, but that to me, that sets up a different kind of dynamic. And so, look, I'm bringing in as much, but I'm going to bear this. I'm going to bear this burden ultimately. And then I'll just repeat what I said earlier. Ultimately, you can't demand care that a physician does not deem to be in your best interest. But I'm sure others have more to say about this.
Yeah, my experience has been when I'm faced with families and patients who are in conflict, it is typically because we have failed to find common ground about their understanding of the illness and where they're at in the illness and what to expect going forward. So if we can have these kinds of conversations earlier in the illness trajectory and along the illness journey, then I believe we will run into less conflicting situations because everyone's in the know. It's when these people have been left out and there's a charade going on over here and no one's talking, a code of silence over here, and then suddenly we're faced with a decision we need to make, and then there's conflict. So, I mean, the answer to everything is communication.
Can I just add one other thing? I think it's also really important to be sensitive to cultural difference. And here in the UK, we live in an incredibly multicultural society, and attitudes towards death and approaches towards death, and they really vary very dramatically. So sometimes if you can find an ambassador or somebody who can help you mediate that relationship, that can also be really an important element.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I've got time for maybe one more question.
Oh, I know I've got the microphone, but I thought it was polite to put my hand up. So I think we've been really lucky in this room today and with you guys, but you're all talking to the converted already with your audience here. We've talked about honest and open conversations, and we know that's really important around the subject of death and dying. And I think education is the key, isn't it? But how do we educate everybody else out there, starting from babies, toddlers, talking about death and dying, normal dying where you've got a disease that's incurable and life-limiting. How do we, collectively together, get it to the masses? Do we use social media more? What do we do to spread the word? Sorry, that's a big question.
I'm just thinking that I personally regret when Goldie died at our house, Goldfish, when my girls were little, that I did sneak out and get a new Goldie that looked identical to the old Goldie. And I think my kids were wondering at some point, how did this goldfish live for 10 years? Because I kept replacing it. So I hear you. This education has to start and be normalized from the very beginning. So I think we would all agree there's a huge public health component to this, a responsibility to raise our collective mortality awareness and make that stage of life as normal and expected, as puberty is, right? So there's lots of work to be done, for sure. Anyone else? Oh.
Can do, yeah, of course. So again, just to follow on from that point, so things such as advocating for death literacy in schools, looking at how policy might be able to be adapted and changed within different health and wider community social ecosystems, and then yes, using digital and all of the different means that we can. So the saying that palliative care is everyone's business. Well, advanced care planning is everyone's business. So it's trying to galvanize, through whichever ways and means that are, available to each one of us to promote advanced care planning and death literacy in its wider scope as well.
I obviously endorse everything else everyone's said. And I think we are seeing change. I think the fact that we're having the conversations, that you've asked the question, it is starting to get out there. I am still amused by people in their 40s, 50s, 60s who come to me and say, I need to get my parents talking about their advanced care planning. And I said, well, a great way to start would actually be to talk about your advanced care. Oh, and then it hadn't occurred to them at all. And the more we can all do that and actually alert every other adult to the fact, as I said in my talk, this is not about when you get ill. It's not about when you're given a life-limiting diagnosis. It's just there, and we all use the word normalizing. And the more we can all have those conversations and recognize that this is not about them, it's about us, then it becomes a more honest and open conversation.
That's a great point. I met a guy at the Dying Matters event last week at the Forum, and he'd lost his wife very early, probably in her 40s during COVID, and he said, I keep trying to talk to all of my friends about this, but they all think that because it's happened to her, it's not going to happen to them, and they're burying their heads in the sand. And I think that's what we need to help people to do, is to put their heads up and think, do you know what, this could happen to any of us at any stage. My family and loved ones are sick of me talking about it, but I think the more we do, the easier it will become.
Just one little sneaky question from Lee, and then that's it. We
just feeding into what you've already said and what's already been answered, really. But I think that there is so much going on in society at the moment for people that not everybody has the same opportunity, the same space to think about things like this. Life is busy. We, on our project, we support a cohort of patients where their housing is at risk or they're in housing that isn't appropriate for their needs anymore. They're on low income, they've got significant debts, and it's very difficult. And I've sat and listened to everything that's been said today about actually conveying that message to someone to say, you do realise this is really important, when actually their priorities are completely different, because their priority is, how am I going to put food on the table this week? So it would be good to know how to have conversations with people who are in more difficult situations.
Yes, I don't have a quick answer to that, so I'm going to pass that on. But just my very quick response, though, is that we work with a lot of social prescribers, and we've had exactly the same. And when they work in more affluent areas, they've got great success with getting people to do their advanced care planning. When they're working in the more deprived areas, it's just not a topic they need or want to raise.
Can I just add something? I know you're short of time. It was really back to your question, and it was that since being diagnosed, I've probably bored my whole family and friends talking about it, but in our group of friends and family, it's now become kind of normal to talk about dying and funerals and having cancer. And while I found it really hard to start with, I do think that the more people like me do that and have those conversations, it's going to take a generation, but I think it's just talking about it and not being scared about it. I'm scared, but they don't need to be scared because it's not happening to them, but they need to talk about it and share it and discuss it, and people are starting to, but it's an uphill struggle. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Susie. Just, did anyone put one more comment for Lee? Has anyone got anything else? And it is such a hard topic when people are unfortunately marginalised, living in deprived areas, when everything else is so difficult out there. And this is just, it's thought of as a luxury, isn't it? Because we can't even cope with the basic demands of heating, food, shelter, just the basic thing. So no, did anyone want to comment on that? And then...
Sorry.
So many questions.
Sorry, I was just going to make a comment. Yeah, I really appreciate that question. I think we do have to meet people where they're at. And I would guess that many of these people feel that their lives are spinning out of control, and that maybe it's finding an angle that we can creep into to help them, you know, that this could be a way of feeling some control over a piece of your life right now might resonate. So what will resonate with them, I think, is the question we should ask ourselves, and not keep the invitation from them because we think they have other more pressing issues. That I think our responsibility is to offer, invite, stand guard ready to help them if they want to go there, and just sell them some of these other softer reasons why this can be a feel-good experience, that you don't need money for, or X, Y, and Z. I don't know.
Thank you. I've just got two more comments I can take, and then I can't. It's the lady in the back and this lady here. Then I really have to cut it short. I'm so sorry.
Oh, I've got the mic.
Yeah.
This is for Zoe. So with, obviously you said the advanced care plan and document had to be witness signed. Who can be a witness? As a nurse, can I be a witness or not?
Is that for are you talking about the advanced decision to refuse treatment?
Yeah, you know, like the document that Zoe was talking about.
The Usha, maybe, who was talking about the advanced decision to refuse treatment?
Yes.
Yes. Claire, do you want to answer that one? Or anyone?
I'm happy to. Sorry, I didn't see the person who asked that. So, hi. So for an ADRT, you do need an independent witness. When I did my ADRT, I had a very close friend that had known me since primary school. You don't have to have a healthcare professional. It can be somebody like a close personal friend. There are situations, many of you will be aware of the phenomenal Wendy Mitchell, a lady with dementia who died of young onset dementia. And Wendy chose to have her GP be her witness, because if there was any cause that could be questioned, then potentially a GP or a healthcare professional could be, but it doesn't legally have to be. It can be.
So I could do it for like my parents, for instance.
I would recommend that you don't do it as a daughter. I would put a degree of separation as a daughter. yes, I would recommend you don't witness your parents' signature.
Okay, thank you.
And just one last question from this lady here, and then we really have to end. I'm so sorry, which we had a whole week of this.
Thank you. I'm one of those people out there who isn't a professional. I live with my husband who lives with dementia, and he won't discuss anything about plans. I've organised the LPAs, but they're still in my computer. I have to confess, I haven't got them out yet, partly because I have two very dominant daughters. And I'm actually, it sounds very foolish, but I'm scared of being overruled as to what happens to my husband. I think I know better, perhaps I don't. And I understand from all I've learnt today that these conversations have got to happen. But when you're isolated, which one is in one's home, we have no professionals. He's not particularly ill. We have no professionals who are supporting us. And that is a very, very difficult situation to be in. I don't expect you to answer that in 2 seconds flat, but I don't know where to go.
If I can just let Bill say something at the back, and then I can put back to the panel, because I can see him waving at me.
Hi. I was going to say, just at the other end, kind of in terms of the community side of things, there was a comment, I think, Louise, you were saying that every speciality should have the obligation to have these palliative, these end-of-life care, wishes, decisions, choices, conversations. A few years ago, there was an interview with Atul Gawande, and he was saying that it should almost be, it should almost be a kind of question of negligence not to have this as part of the care conversations, the choices. And just that if we had, I mean, not just doctors, but clinical nurse specialists, which within our service we're training up, and we're getting a lot of support and coverage in terms of the conversations.
And I think, Bill, that you're answering that lady's question, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because she was saying, who does she have to go to? And what are you saying about your service, about how, again, it's a service that you say it hasn't got an illness, and exactly that's what your service does. It's anybody that wants to talk about and have an advocate for advanced care planning. Is that right, Bill?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's called Compassionate Companions, just so because not everyone is aware of your service.
But I think also just embedding it, I mean, that at the medical level, whether it's nursing or doctors, should be absolutely, it should be embedded there as well.
I guess in the same way as your GPs are asking, are you smoking, how much do you drink, when you attend for anything, perhaps it would be an opportunity to say, have you got an advanced care plan, have you got a power of attorney, do you want a power of attorney? That would be taking opportunities, and I guess Lee, speaking to you about like how you get people to prioritise these conversations when they're up against such severe adversity. A lot of it's opportunistic. I don't know, maybe we could have a quick chat at the end, because there are some like specific documents that might be helpful that I use. And to you, I was just going to say, you've had many years of knowing a person, and that you should feel confident in advocating for the person that you love, and perhaps with some support from an organisation, it may make it feel safer.
Thank you so much. I'm going to have to end it here because we are fashionably late, as always. But if we can just do a massive clap, just literally for everyone today. Thank you so much. So I just want to end with just a couple of comments that I think the key message today is who should do advanced care planning, when should we do it, and if you don't know the answer to this, get out of the room. Because as we know now, it's everyone's responsibility. It's a professional responsibility as you being as human being to have the opportunity to start having these conversations. And I think anytime
is the right time to have these conversations. And I think today there's quite a bit on social media that we've been putting. If you can go onto the Advanced Care Planning Day 2024 website and start thinking, because we don't want this day just to be a passive day. So for you out there live streaming and for you guys in the audience, we want to activate, not only activate ourselves, but start to ripple effect that back out to other healthcare professionals, compassionate communities, to general public, for everyone to start thinking about it. So, is that okay? Yeah. So thank you so much for having those conversations with us today, and it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm just going to say a quick few thank yous. The biggest thank you is to our amazing sponsors, Norfolk and Norwich University Hospital Trust. I think a couple of the girls are here today, Hannah and Remy. Oh, they've gone. But the whole team have been absolutely amazing. They funded the whole day for us, and we are so grateful for them believing in this amazing, amazing, important topic, to be able to bring all these absolutely professional, experienced speakers here, all you people in the live stream, in the audience, to bring everyone together, because I think, like I think Jane was saying, it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to die, it takes a village for us to make change. And I think it is very much a social movement, and we need to get on the back of that, and we need to ripple effect this out. So thank you again, Hospitals Charity, thank you so much. Again, to all the speakers, to all of the amazing charity stands and support services we're here today, we really appreciate, and I think it's really opening people's eyes on what's available in the community. I know lots of other people who are live streaming had their own local support services and charities, because it's so important we know what's out there in our local community. We know how to access those services. We need to be part of that community. I also want to say a big thanks to the volunteers, amazing, Sophie, Caroline, Clem, all the other butterfly and amazing volunteers. Stephen on the online live stream, you've been doing a great job. And linking on to that live stream, Norwich live stream themselves, who've been able to get this message. I had a dream. I had a dream. And it was to get this message out, and hopefully I think we're live streaming to over 300 different organisations and people around the world. So again, hopefully this really will echo out and be a massive ripple effect. So thank you so much, Norwich live stream. And thank you so much, John Innes, for having us here today, the amazing food, so much great hospitality. It's been absolutely fabulous. Graphics, medical illustration, the comms team, and to every single supporter. And there's so much more that we can do. So get online, get tweeting, social media, get talking to people. And thank you so much for today. I've just got a few little gifts that I will give, but I know everybody is desperate to go.
Can we just thank Danny?
Oh,
most importantly, for organising today. Well done, Danny.
Teamwork.
And has anyone lost some glasses as well? If anyone's lost some glasses,
so I'm just going to close saying thank you so much. Please, everyone that's live streaming, please post, please get connecting. And I've also been asked if we want to create, just like Canada are doing, a social movement here in the UK. Caroline Barry has asked if anyone who's live streaming, who's anyone here in the audience, get in contact to me, because we want to start a real social movement. Guy at the back here from Compassionate Communities, again, we are trying to start that out. So please, if you are interested, we need an army, we need a village, we need a city, we need a whole movement. So thank you so much.